was fun. I love this sport. I gave it my all. It's fucking crazy. I had a blast, and thank you to all the fans and everyone.
All right, folks, it's over. Anthony Joshua knocks out Jake Paul in the 6th round of their fight on Netflix.
Style that would align with a ring that size, a negative style, as we mentioned. It really comes down to the fan interest. Jake Paul is on a 2-fight stretch coming into this one, which really put his reputation on the line.
Professional boxers respond to the possibility of Jake Paul stepping away from the sport after a surprising knockout defeat against Anthony Joshua. Jake has suggested that after accomplishing everything he aims for in boxing, he intends to retire and transition into an NFL career, indicating a significant change in his athletic path.
Go after this. Like legitimately just to play like safety and just deck people. No, I swear to God, I'm about to bring hella ratings to whatever team I'm on.
Where would you want to go if you can go to any team?
Shit, the Browns.
So
I can run a 4.34.
He's the fastest man on the planet.
I got hands. I have the size, the power. I can knock people out with one punch. So why can't I play free safety?
Do you think you coming into the NFL would be the equivalent of like when an NFL player says, I'm going to try to box now?
No, because I played football my whole life. At the end of the day, it's coverage, knowing your plays, and then just being fast and willing.
The boxing community reacts intensely to the bout, with former IB figures sharing a blunt reaction after the shocking knockout. He delivered a harsh opinion on Jake Paul's future by writing, "Jake Paul knocked out. His career is finished. This bum is done." Duke McKenzie also weighed in on the fight, noting how physically smaller Jake Paul appeared compared to Anthony Joshua. He explained that even when Jake attempted to throw punches, he struggled to reach AJ effectively, underlining the clear mismatch. McKenzie firmly believes Jake should put an end to this now, warning that continuing in these types of fights could be risky and harmful to his boxing image.
Tried to throw a shot, he would lunge in, jump in, and because he was so short, he'd miss. And then he ended up stumbling over his feet and falling over. Sometimes in that fight, he reminded me of, have you seen that Kung Fu film called The Drunken Master? Except for he wasn't a master. As a Kung Fu guy who walks around and normally kicks people's ass, but he looks drunk all the time. That's what that fight reminded me of. It was such a poor showing from Jake Paul. You know, I mean, it's a well-documented fact. There was a lot of money on the line. And I'm sure you, Max, as I would, and anybody else in the street would fight Anthony Joshua for 75 million. You just would. And the same thing would happen. And even after the fight, now the fight's over, the 75 million.
Another former user, Chelsea, responds emotionally to Jake Paul's shocking defeat, expressing their honest reaction and relief by posting, "I hardly come here anymore, but I'm so glad Jake Paul lost. Maybe now he'll finally shut up." Former UFC champion Michael Bisping also reacted to Jake Paul's crushing loss to Anthony Joshua, describing it as a masterclass performance. He breaks down how badly Jake was hurt, explaining that AJ's powerful uppercuts and combinations gave Paul no space to move. Even when Jake tried to escape by running, he couldn't avoid the punishment. Bisping points out the serious damage to Jake's face and overall condition, making it clear that he must fully rest and recover before thinking about any future fights. The bout clearly revealed Jake's limitations when facing elite-level opponents.
In my humble opinion, because I'm a big Anthony Joshua fan. Of course, I've been a supporter for the longest time. A rather lackluster, unmotivated Anthony Joshua that didn't look like he was being particularly nasty, right? A lot of the time he was out of range, and okay, it is hard to land a shot on someone that's backing up and moving away the whole time. And there was a lot of times where he had him in the corner and he could have thrown a shot. And sometimes he was telegraphing his shots. And anytime he did go in to throw a punch, as I said before, Jake Paul would shoot in and turn it into a wrestling match. And even when he wasn't shooting in, he was clinching a lot. This is boxing, it's not MMA as we know. The referee should have done a much better job of getting in there and separating them much, much faster. As I say, it was the 6th round. I think it was the 4th round he got dropped twice. In the 5th round, he got through it. In the 6th round, caught him with the jab, and a glancing right hook. He goes down, and that was that. That was all she wrote, right? I did a live. There was about 9,000 people watching at one point. Nobody was particularly enjoying the matchup. Listen, okay? I respect both men. I respect anyone really that steps into the ring, okay? And certainly going up against Anthony Joshua, that was a tall task, okay? You know, metaphorically and figuratively, right? It was a tall task. It was a big job. It was a tough opponent. It was a mismatch, and it was, right? Jake Paul never worried Anthony Joshua once. He never rung his bell. He never caused any damage. He never had him worried. He never did anything. It wasn't a fight. It was a display of how long can Jake Paul last? Can he run away long enough to...
Another former user, Cabral's finest, reacts to Jake Paul's shocking injury, stressing how serious the situation is by posting, Jake Paul has been taken to hospital with suspected broken jaw. Bro was forced into early retirement. Sean Jones also shares his thoughts on the brutal fight between Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua, pointing out that at least the match was real and not scripted. He mentions that even though Jake suffered a broken jaw, AJ wasn't using his full power, suggesting the knockout could have been far worse. Jones underlines the seriousness of the injury while acknowledging the fight's authenticity. He believes Jake encountered a legitimate test, and the bout exposed a harsh reality of stepping up against a world-class boxer like Joshua, making the injury even more significant.
Those people who were fully convinced that this fight was 100% rigged. Like, people said that this is a clown show, and they said this is rigged, this is scripted. Okay, so now Joshua's won. What are you going to say to that? So was it scripted that Joshua was going to win? You see this whole narrative about, oh, the fight's rigged, the fight's scripted. That's illegal to do, and Joshua is not going to tarnish his legacy by doing something like that. Would Jake Paul do something like that? Maybe so, yeah, but not someone like Joshua. Come on. Now, to be fair, 80% of that fight was looking a little bit dodgy. It was looking like Joshua wasn't throwing as much as he usually would. Jake Paul was landing on Joshua. He landed a really strong jab that knocked Joshua's head back. He landed a couple of decent overhand rights. In fact, Jake was kind of the first one who landed the biggest shots of the fight. But this is the thing, anyone who fights, even on like a low-level basis, or who just does some sparring, will understand that when you fight someone who has got nowhere near the skill level as you, sometimes it can be a little bit harder because they're awkward. They're doing stuff that you don't really expect. You know, sometimes when you fight beginners, it's a bloody nightmare. Just like, you know, awkward movements. You're like, what are they throwing? You don't expect certain shots to come that do come. And then you fight someone who's a little bit more traditionally sound with the fundamentals, and it's almost a little bit easier. And I think that's what we've seen here in this fight. AJ has had an easier time with some fighters who've got like 40 professional fights with 20 KOs on the record than he did with Jake Paul. Why is that? Oh, because it's scripted. It's scripted. No, it's not scripted. It's just because Jake Paul is awkward and he's a beginner in relation to Joshua. So Joshua just took some time to figure them out. You could see Joshua was getting a little bit frustrated in that 4th and 5th round, but then he started.
Usermere71 delivers a blunt warning to Jake Paul after his loss, encouraging him to walk away from boxing by posting, "Do everyone a favor and don't come back." Many boxing fans appear fed up. Analyst Liam Goff also cautions that Jake is in serious trouble following his brutal defeat to Anthony Joshua. Goff explains that Jake's boxing options are essentially shut down for now due to severe injuries that will require a long recovery period. With a broken jaw and additional physical damage, Jake must take time off and focus completely on healing. Goff stresses that until Jake fully recovers, any return to ring is off the table, noting that this recovery phase is critical for Jake's long-term health and future in professional sports.
He had that face-off with Tank Davis. He was looking at a guy who was, 5-6 inches shorter than him and probably 60-70 pounds lighter, right? So he was probably looking at that thinking, yeah, you're a legit boxer, yeah, you hit very hard, but look how much bigger I am to you. Contrast that to him looking up at Anthony Joshua and realizing, oh my God, look at the size of you in comparison to me. That's a bit different. And I think with Jake Paul, it really dawned on him what's going on. But Jake Paul has to keep face. He has to stay essentially in that persona that, you know, I am the man, I'm going to win this, trying to sell a dream to a casual, a bit like what Eddie Hearn does, trying to sell the casual audience that this is going to be a real fight, quote unquote. It was a real fight. It's not scripted, but you know what I mean, that he's really in this fight. That's what he was trying to do. And he did that well up until fight night. Boy, did he fail miserably on fight night. Again, I give him credit. He doesn't need to box. He can choose an easier profession, as I say. But to go in and to run around the ring like that, that was something else entirely. I mean, he was doing his best Roadrunner impression in there. He was running around that ring from the minute that bell went. That was all he was trying to do. And listen, AJ's performance, I can critique it from a defensive point of view, that he got hit with some silly shots that he probably shouldn't have been hit with. He was trying to cut the ring off in a ring as big as that. It's not easy. All right. And furthermore, if you're in there with an opponent who purely just wants to survive, he's no interest in winning the fight. He just wants to go the rounds. People, you could be one of the most you could be a prime Mike Tyson, Bone Crusher Smith, prime example. People never talk about that fight with Mike Tyson because they say, oh yeah, prime.
Following an injury from his latest bout, Jake Paul shared an update with fans on X about his recovery and current state, expressing appreciation for his medical team while admitting the road ahead will be difficult. He posted, "Just got out of surgery. Everything went smoothly. Thanks for all the love. Lots of pain and stiffness. Have to stick to liquids for 7 days. Shout out to the incredible team at Miami University Hospital. Everyone was so kind and caring." Wade also weighed in on Jake Paul's recent fight, explaining that while Jake may feel he has already accomplished a lot, part of that mindset comes from not needing to defend multiple titles and being able to target major money fights next year. Wade discusses possible matchups with stars like Canelo or even a slower year for Jake, while mentioning that a huge future fight with Tyson Fury could happen if Jake fully commits. However, he warns that Jake was far behind AJ in terms of skill, size, power, speed, and stamina, though he still gives him credit for stepping into the ring. Wade also notes the massive online reaction hype, praising Jake for taking on such a high-level challenge despite the expected result, and ultimately describes the event as an excellent spectacle for boxing fans.
26, and I don't think he fights a ton in 2026. I think it'll be a very slow year for him. Look for those two guys as the main two he would fight. I wish it was Tommy Fury, but I doubt it. On the other side, I want to see him get back into boxing specifically, get back into committing to this, because there is a massive, massive fight that awaits him in Tyson Fury. It's far past time that it happened. If they don't do it now, they never will. And yeah, man, I don't really know what else to say on this fight. As far as, what happened in there tonight, I know on Twitter, people are going to want their money back, or they're going to call it a bad fight or a sloppy fight or whatever. And then there's going to be people, celebrating Jake's downfall. That was always going to be the case. Of course, the first time he gets rocked, dropped, and stopped, people are going to celebrate like it's the 4th of July, or it's their birthday, or like it's Christmas. So yeah, expect that, but I won't do that here. I won't, because I respect the hell out of him for going and doing it, and there's not any normal people on earth that would have done it. I don't care if you say, oh, for...
Another former user, Zane, responds to the shocking report surrounding Jake Paul's injury, expressing disbelief and concern about how serious it is by posting, "Jake Paul says he has a double jaw fracture, snapped, and may never fight again." He adds that AJ broke Jake Paul's jaw, calling it dirty and terrible. Jake Paul's recent loss to Anthony Joshua has reportedly resulted in a severe jaw injury. The damage is said to be serious enough to keep him out of boxing for at least a year. Medical professionals and industry sources explain that recovering from a double jaw fracture requires long-term rest, rehabilitation, and close supervision to avoid lasting complications, forcing Jake to pause all fighting plans. Fans and analysts have voiced concern, stressing that a fighter's health must come first, especially after such a brutal defeat. Jake has shared updates on his condition, thanking his medical team while admitting the pain and restrictions during recovery. With his jaw fractured, he is unable to train or compete safely, making full recovery the top priority. This injury represents a major setback and a significant break in his boxing career.
The Anthony Joshua-Jake Paul fight was going to be rigged. These x-rays definitely tell a different story. So on December 19th of 2025, as I'm sure most of you are probably aware, Jake Paul fought the two-time unified heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua at the Cassia Center in Miami, Florida, which was streamed exclusively on Netflix as part of a major boxing event that was promoted by Paul's Most Valuable Promotions. The ending result was Anthony Joshua won by knockout in the 6th round after Jake Paul was knocked down 4 times in total, twice in the 5th round and twice in the 6th round. Anthony Joshua landed 48 punches on Jake Paul compared to Jake Paul landing about 16 on Anthony Joshua. And this is the second professional loss of Jake Paul's fighting career, dropping his record down to 12-2. Now, Jake Paul ended up suffering a double broken jaw during the fight and was taken to the hospital afterward, skipping the post-fight press conference, probably because he probably couldn't talk. But in his in-ring interview, he said, "That was crazy. I had a blast. I think my jaw is broke." Anyway, as far as his professional fighting career is concerned, as of December 20th of 2025, he doesn't have any new opponents that have been announced, and it's expected that his jaw injury is going to take 4 to 6 weeks to recover from. Regardless of how you feel about him, that dude fought a 2-time heavyweight champion and survived. And I think we can all agree that regardless of how you feel, that takes some serious...
Analysts Brian Campbell and Shaquille Majuri appeared on CBS Sports to analyze Jake Paul's latest fight, providing a detailed breakdown of his tactics and overall showing. They observed that Paul relied heavily on movement, staying elusive and avoiding being trapped in corners, which helped him survive longer than many expected. However, they raised doubts about how he could seriously compete for a cruiserweight title without taking a more aggressive approach against top-level opponents. Campbell, speaking from Missouri, pointed out that Paul's fame, more than pure boxing ability, may be what keeps his career going, citing potential money-making bouts such as a fight with KSI or a rematch with Tommy Fury. They also suggested that Paul's cautious, defensive style and preference for a large 22-foot ring indicate that drawing fan interest and entertainment value may currently matter more than true championship aspirations.
For him in terms of what he's doing in the boxing ring.
Listen, so long as people will tune in and so long as Jake Paul is paid by Netflix or any broadcaster to air his fights, we're going to see this continue. And Jake Paul knows his business model, right? Now, this deviated, this AJ fight, which came together kind of last minute after the Tank Davis fight fell apart. But we know Jake Paul's MO here. It's find the most popular guy with the most physical disadvantages for me to fight. And Jake Paul has the benefit that he's turned himself into a villain, or in the pro wrestling circles, a heel. People tune in to watch. We did not tune into this fight to see competitive boxing. Most of us tuned in because we thought, here's Anthony Joshua. Here's a 2-time unified heavyweight champion, a guy who physically just overwhelms Jake Paul. And we're finally going to get what Tyron Woodley and Anderson Silva, Nate Diaz were not physically fit, whether it be through their size, experience, or age to do, and that is knock out Jake Paul. And so, because I don't really feel like we got that satisfying comeuppance that a lot of people have been waiting for, it kind of gives Jake Paul a little bit of mystique, I'd almost say, to still try and string this along. Now, I don't know in terms, he says he wants to be cruiserweight champion. I'm not quite sure what the competitive road there is, because let's make no mistake, the reason this fight lasted as long as it did is because Jake Paul focused exclusively on being elusive. He did his best, and kudos to him, right? He did a great job of not getting cornered. He was always on the gas until the gas sort of fell out from underneath him. And so I don't quite know, short of leveraging his popularity, how he's going to get to that title shot if he's not actually going to fight, like really fight an elite boxer. But if he's looking to make money, there's the KSI fight out there. There's the Tommy Fury rematch. There is ways for Jake Paul to...
That wraps up today's video. Stay tuned for more. Until next time.